How's everything going?
So good. Yeah, everything's great. It's a
How was your
beautiful day over here, so
Oh yeah. Say that again?
it's a beautiful day over here, so it's great.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. How was your trip home from Vegas?
It was so nice. Yeah,
Oh,
Vegas is great. Everyone had so many breakthroughs, like huge breakthroughs, and it was beautiful. Really inspiring too, like giving me so much like energy just to keep going.
I love that. I love that. I love those experiences where it's motivators. They're like big, like boulder, like they just kind of push you even though you're helping other. It's like a really beautiful dynamic.
Yeah, it's like
I was so happy
a
to hear that.
snowball.
Yes, a snowball. That's exactly what it is. Exactly what it is. To be completely honest with you, I'm a little bit nervous for today, like in a sense of like excitement and nerves. So I can't wait. And thank you so very much for saying yes to this. This is such an
Oh my gosh,
amazing.
I'm like so excited too. So
All right, so to start off, let's just dive in and tell everyone and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Um, well, I'm Hannah. Hello. And a little bit about what I do. I do a few different crafts and modalities to help people release stuck emotion. And it's subconscious work and it's deep body work as well. So I help people release emotion through breath work, through movement, and verbal facilitating. Um, that's as best as I can wrap it up in a nutshell.
A little nutshell. I love it. I love it. So I know we've had a few conversations previous to the podcast, and I've learned some interesting things about you. So let's kind of backtrack. So what actually started you? Because I know you do breathwork and sensual movement, but what kind of started you into this beautiful journey that you are on?
What started me on it is when I was a teenager. I think like every teenager just goes through their teenage fits or episodes, or it's like we're becoming so much more intelligent and stronger and independent. And I feel like every teenager kind of goes through that, which also brings up problems within the family. And I feel like every teenager can relate and they like want to change things about their family environment, or it's just like that teenage angst. Like there's so much anger in there and like frustration and like that. And so around that time, I found the Sedona method, which is I'm a facilitator in the Sedona method. And it was, or the Sedona method is a way of releasing any unwanted thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And so I got to taste like a little bit of it. And I had two processes. One was releasing on people. So cleaning up the energy within your relationship, any relationship dynamic. It could be like romantic, siblings, friends, parents, whatever. And so I first started working on the people in my house. So the first person I released on was my sister, and then I did like my parents. And another release process I got to experiment with was releasing on wants. And especially I feel like as a teenager, there's so many things you want, and but you also feel powerless because you're a minor, you're under the age 18, you're not an adult yet. Like there's so many limitations um to your world, but yet like you're still a powerful, intelligent person. So it's like this double-edged sword and this kind of like internal fight. And so within those two processes, I would drop into this like extreme deep peace state that like still to this day I it really resonates and I really remember, and well I still can drop into that deep sense of peace.
Absolutely.
And what that's actually called, I didn't know this at the time. I actually recently learned this being a breathwork facilitator. The place I was dropping into is yoga nidra, and that's a deep meditative space where the body heals and um a lot of advanced meditators and monks like try or do their best to meditate to this yoga nidra place for the benefits of it. But that just resonated so deep within like my heart, my body, my soul, my mind, because like my mind got quiet, my mind got still. And I felt that like at a deep core level. And so it just always like I remembered that. And then when I was like dealing with some of my own issues as I became an adult, I like was struggling with like suicidal ideation and things like that. And I remembered that like deep sense of peace. I remembered like I can get relief. And so I decided to like dive into that modality and see like if I can get myself more relief on the other problems I was experiencing. And it worked. Like it just works. And I'm just really fortunate that I got to experience that before learning other unhealthy coping mechanisms like drugs, alcohol, like I was never a person to like cut myself either. So, like, those are other forms of how people cope with what's going on inside. And I just learned a different method and it works. So I stuck with it. Like,
That is beautiful. That is beautiful. I'm kind of intrigued and want to learn a little bit more about how you started to use that on your family as you were a teenager and how that actually built your relationships and how that changed your relationships as well as you growing up till now.
oh my God. It has changed. Like I feel like it's the foundation of who I am. So like and I can strongly say, um, I have very like healthy and functional relationships. And when like let's say, relationships do come and go, like I've had boyfriends I've had to break up with and yeah, in work relationships and friendships, like people will come and go. And instead of having people come and go with trauma and drama and heartache and pain, it's like I can flow through relationships and see like, okay, like this season is done in our life and it's time to move on. And it's like the leaves of the trees falling and letting it go. Like it's just something that has to happen and it's natural. And like that trauma drama is just not there. But with that being said, the dynamic when I first started using it, the dynamic in my family shifted dramatically, actually. And so at the time before I started using it, my parents were like separated, but it was like this back and forth thing. My dad would stay at home, he wouldn't sometimes. I would fight with my older sister all the time, physically, verbally, emotionally, like all the time fighting. And then my little sister, because we were fighting all the time, she kind of just like got the brunt of us. She was like our scapegoat. And so it was like, I would say, a very unhealthy and toxic situation where we were just letting our emotions out on each other as siblings and just so much fighting. And then I start doing this release process. And what happens in this release process is you're getting in touch with the emotional upset or like not the story. We're getting out of the story and we're going straight to the emotion. And I really like, I'm like pointing at my body, like the feeling sense, what's really here. And you're dissolving that. And so I just started dropping into peace. And what I noticed in my behavior is instead, in the past, when I'm fighting a lot, there's so much tension, so much yelling, so much violence, quite honestly, is we were like kind of cooped up and stuck in the house. And I got to grow up like around a lot of land. Like we grew up on 2 acres. There was 50 acres of our neighbor behind us. There was a conservation district land in front of us. So like we were just surrounded by land. And I noticed as I started like dropping into this piece, I would just go out in nature a lot more. And I would just like invite my sisters to like come on walks with me or like go down to the creek or the pond. And like, I like would play with our dog. Like at the time we had like literal pack of dogs and, just my behavior changed. my shift changed. And I think it's so much more that mindset. And um, there's this principle I learned along the way: what you focus on, you create more of. And so instead of focusing on the pain, the trauma, the drama, the upset, the story, I was just focusing on peace. And I was holding the peace. And I just started focusing on things I wanted to. And that was very unconscious at the time. I didn't know that's what I was doing. And I just stopped focusing on the bullshit, for lack of a better word. And I started getting along with my sisters more. And my dad started like coming back into the house, like, coming to stay, like the whole separation, just like kind of just calmed down. Like everything just calmed down. And it just was like this effortless grace of going through life after that. It wasn't this whole back and forth trauma, drama, slamming through upset. And like it was very dramatic because it was like nothing else in my life changed. No one else was using this tool except me. Like it was very black and white of how it was before, and using this after, it just calmed down and life just continued as it did. And as far as like navigating relationships from here on out, you can tell, or like doing this type of work grows this certain intuition, this certain like inner guidance. And your inner world, your inner environment gets a lot more loud because you're getting in touch with it, you're focusing on it, you're taking care of it, you're nurturing it instead of projecting it on other people. And so when there's this sense, there's this feeling of when things are not in harmony anymore, when things are, kind of going towards that path of the trauma, drama, when there's tension in a relationship. And I first always just check in with myself and I like analyze the situation. And I first become to a neutral place and where I feel clear instead of going into this relationship dynamic or conversation from an emotionally charged place. And so coming from it clear-headed, clear emotionally, if things do come up, I can just show up so much more kind and present and things just get solved. And so like long story short, like it really has affected relationships a ton.
That is beautiful. And it's incredible that you have been able to completely shift your family dynamic, which is so cool and so out of this world. A lot of people would just kind of be stuck in that situation, not know how to get out of it. But you learned and you were able to manipulate your entire childhood, so to say.
Yeah. Well, it still happens. So just to give people some context, I am second to youngest out of 7 kids. I have a lot of cousins. My family dynamic, we're very close. And so I feel like, especially with family, like, when people are on a healing path or a spiritual path or an emotional intelligence path, it is really easy to apply to people that aren't your family. It is so easy to. And you're like, oh, I am enlightened now, I'm fully released, or I'm liberated, or whatever. But when it comes to behind closed doors, within the real muck of the shit, like it gets tough and it's hard to not engage yourself in the drama and to really take a step back and do your own work. And then come, because family's so triggering. And it's like, but those triggers are your roadmap. Like, what is that in you? And even to this day, I still am using the tools. And what I've noticed throughout the years, so I'm 27 now, and I've been doing this for probably 12 years, using these same tools, same processes, over and over, because it just works. And I noticed in those 12 years of me actually doing this, and you can ask any of my siblings this, out of all of my family, out of all my siblings, I'm the one that just doesn't have beef with everybody. but it's like everyone has beef with everybody else, and which is fine. And I just like sit back and just love each other or love them exactly how they are, and watch watch things hit the fan, and when the upset calms down, I'm still here. And it's just really funny. Especially because I was just having a conversation with my little sister about this, but like I really am the person in my family that continues to hold peace within all the family dynamic relationships, whether it be my parents or all my other siblings, or I'm just the one that continues to hold peace.
Yeah. You're like that middle ground, the neutral, and all of the chaos. It's
Yeah.
beautiful. So how would you, so if you were to give guidance on someone who is in your exact same position and doesn't know where to start, and is in this like is in a position where they feel like they're amidst chaos, where would you tell them where to start looking for guidance in helping establish themselves in this like neutral position, this place of peace and happiness?
The fastest way is check in with your breath. And like that also brings me into like why I'm a breathwork facilitator. Our breath is directly our tool that you can use right here, right now, in the present moment. It keeps us in the present moment. And when there's upset, when there's trauma and drama, you're not in the present. You're worrying about the past, you're stuck on the past, or you're having anxiety and worrying about the future. And that back and forth game of like past, future, it that is anxiety, that is depression. Holding on to the past is depression, worrying about the future is anxiety. And that back and forth game, you're not present. And so our breath is the best way to just get present, and taking like deep belly breaths, feeling your belly expand with every breath you take. And if you're in this like heightened, anxious, adrenaline's just stressed place, that family can just really bring you. Breathing in and out through the nose, deep into the belly, will actually calm your nervous system down, get you into the rest, digest nervous system instead of like that fight, flight. And so that's just something you can use right here, right now. Just check in with your breath, calm down, because when you're acting out of an emotionally heightened place, you're going to say and do things you don't mean. You don't mean that. And it's not really coming from you. That's a whole nother topic. If you want to dive into that, we can. But checking in with your breath, checking in with your body, and being present allows you to come from a heart space and come from a place where you do mean it. And you are saying what you mean, and giving people also time and space to calm down themselves. A lot of people aren't open-minded to taking a few breaths. Some people need space, some people need a walk, and some things don't need to be solved right now.
Absolutely. So let's dive into that a little bit. So where are the words coming from when you are speaking out of an emotionally like triggering or energetic state?
Oh, this is such a fun topic.
I love it.
I really wish I had like an emotional chart right here to like show you the chart of emotions, because that kind of guides us. And so, yeah, whatever emotion you're feeling, think of emotions. It's just energy in motion. Emotions aren't real. It's just something you're experiencing, and it's not who you are. And I feel like in the English language, or how we communicate, especially how we're feeling, it's like, Felicity, I'm happy today. Felicity, I'm mad. I'm sad. You claim it as your own, which it's not you. It's not your own. It's just an experience.
Yeah.
It's a sensation. And it's something that comes up with the body. And so when we feel an energy, it comes from the body first. We feel it. Then it sends a signal to our brain. And then our brain starts to put stories on it. And that's the hard part. That's that's the triggered place that a lot of people can't or don't have the tools to disconnect from the stories and the narrative and their brain running their life. And it's that process of getting out of your head. And so what happens is whatever energy you're experiencing, and I keep saying energy because I want people to really understand emotions is energy in motion. When you're tapping into an emotion or an energy, it is at a certain vibration. And so we have a little antenna like in our brain that is like a radio wave or a radio antenna, and you pick up on waves. And so let's say I'm vibrating at the energy of sadness or grief, which is very similar to the feeling of abandonment as well, and in that energy. So if I'm vibrating there, I feel that, and I go into the story, which solidifies that and keeps me in this loop of sadness. It doesn't allow it to just process and go. If I keep in that loop of sadness, that's all I'm going to perceive. That's all I'm going to pick up. And as far as what thoughts come into our reality, our world, is all the things we've heard as narratives from our family or from books or movies. Like it's all the things we've been programmed with. And so my biggest question with what you've been programmed with, is that really your choice? Is that really what you choose to think about? Is that really yours? And it's not yours. It's just something you've learned. It's a learned behavior. It's a learned vocabulary, language. Like the only reason I'm speaking English is because I learned it from the people that spoke it to me. And so a lot of us are in this cycle of just rehashing and regurgitating things that are not our own choice, things that are not our own vocabulary, or things that are not our own story. And that's where you start getting into generational patterns, generational traumas, and generational cycles within family units. Because if you look at the behavior or the stories or the patterns of sadness, of grief, of anger, of depression, those patterns repeat through history, and those patterns are all within the same thing. It might have a little detailed differences, but the emotion pattern is the same. And so if you can get out of that and realize these emotions are not you, these patterns are not you, you don't have to put a story on how you're feeling. It's just a feeling. Neuroscience has proven now that when you do have a sensation, when you are having a heightened emotion, if you do not suppress it or repress it, and there's a difference between the two, suppression is conscious, repression is subconscious. If you don't do those two things, or if you don't resist the emotion, it will only take 90 seconds for it to go through your system and be processed. So if you can welcome the feeling and sit with it for only 90 seconds, it will go away. And like that whole story doesn't need to create more drama in your life, doesn't need to like create more upset. It just will, that feeling will just dissipate. And like, I'm not saying that to discount how people are feeling or to like say that, you know, there's things in our lives that don't matter. There are things that really matter, and there are big problems people deal with. But dealing with it from an emotionally neutral place, from a level-headed place instead of an emotionally heightened or triggered place, is what we're looking for. And that from that place, from a neutral place, that's where problems can get solved. When you're adding fuel to the fire, it's just adding fuel to the fire, and you're not coming from that neutral place. And so that's a really long-winded way of explaining it, but I hope that makes sense. And if you have questions, let me know.
Oh, yeah, it makes perfect sense. So to kind of dive a little bit deeper into someone who's really, let's say they're really agitated sort of human being, it's from generations, they just have this like anger that's constantly inside them. And it's really hard for them to understand the 90 seconds of just living with it and then letting it go. What would you say is the best tactics in, other than maybe even, I don't know if it would necessarily be focusing on the breath, but anything where they can learn to live with that emotion for that 90 seconds and then learn to also just let it go and let it be free?
I hope I'm understanding your question correctly. Like, so you're asking like, how do they get better at that process?
Yes, exactly.
Mm. It's tough. Like I don't, especially being in a mental or like an emotionally and mentally triggering place, it's hard to remember those things. Until you do, like you'll forget and then you'll remember, and that's okay. And so like be easy on yourself for sure. especially if this is new. It's just like anything, like we have to fall a lot before, like when you're learning how to ride a bike, you fall and that's okay. And you just have to keep getting back up and keep trying to ride the bike. And it's the same thing, just in an emotions way. So be gentle and kind with yourself. Like we are literally dealing with generations of trauma, generations of pain. And science again has proven, I'm just going to ask you just to throw a guess out there, and your listeners too can guess. There's been studies proven to prove how long generational trauma lasts and how many generations it can get passed down. So there was an experiment done with mice where they exposed them to essential oils. And anytime they were exposed to this smell, this essential oil, they would administer a shock, only to the first generation. Then they bred the mice to see if this smell is around, if this essential oil is around, are they going to have a trauma response? Are they going to like withdraw and like go back in or flee from this smell? And I'm curious, how many generations do you think they had that trauma response?
Wow. So my brain, what I think of immediately, I don't know what everyone else is thinking, but I think of just our responses nowadays to just like our mental processes, like back to like caveman era when we still focus on the negative. If we see a shadow, we start to freak out because of like, is that going to be something that kills me, or is it just a shadow? There's this like whole dynamic. So I would say at least like, I mean, I probably am short shotting it, but like probably 50, 60 years. So probably 5, 6 generations.
That's a really good guess. But no,
No.
no. And I do want to like just remind you, this is a simple trauma. Like this is just, oh, this smell makes me get a shock. Ouch, that hurts. I don't like this smell. And so when you think about that trauma, that's not losing a child or losing your husband in war or seeing your, like when you look at family history or your family history or just history in general, there has been genocide, war, famine, rape. Like these are real things.
Yeah.
That has happened to all of our family. The test continued to show the trauma response for 13 generations.
Wow. Holy cow. That's
Mhm.
crazy.
And so when people are trying to deal with their anger upsets or their grief or just their triggers, like be kind, be patient with yourself, and like just bring love into it. Like you're still family and you're fighting because you love each other. Otherwise, you wouldn't fight. Or like the upset's kind because you love each other and you care. And to admit that, like, oh my gosh, how many times do you hear people, I don't care. I just don't care. You do care. And it's okay to care. And it shows that it's love. You're showing your love that you care and that you're upset, and that's okay. And I think like bringing that love into those other emotions and knowing that you're feeling, you're present, and you're having these emotions because you care, because you love is so helpful and takes just like it takes the pain away a little bit. And there's so much you can do with diving into generational trauma and your deep processes and cycles. And another reason why I'm a breathwork facilitator. Breathwork is a great way to uncover that and really dive into our subconscious and diving into what's being stored in our DNA. And so hopefully that's helpful. There's so many other ways to do it, not just breathwork, but just starting with the awareness that, oh, maybe this pattern of addiction or this pattern of depression or this pattern of procrastination. It doesn't even have to be dramatic, just procrastinating. It might not even be yours, but we are living at the time where we have the tools now to process it, to get over it, and like settle our generational cycles and settle our generational traumas and patterns. So like it's like you can start from a clean slate and like really live your life from your choice instead of, being lived by your patterning.
So I did a little bit of research and I just want to bring this up because I think it's very interesting and it kind of goes into this and like talking about new slates and like you can start anew and you can be that catalyst that changes things for the future. So I was listening to Joe Dispenza. He was on the Modern Wisdom podcast and they were talking about how the meditation practices that Joe does actually completely changes, like from studies doing like technology like sort of scans on these people, that it can literally change your cells, change absolutely everything inside your body. Do you have anything you want to speak on about that? And because I know there's going to be some people listening that they're like, oh, that's great, but that's not me. Like I can't be that because they think it's like too high for them. And I just want to like kind of dumb it down to the point where it's like anybody can do this and there's studies to show that.
Wow. Oh, hell yeah. Okay. Joe Dispenza, his work, I love his work. I wow, where do we even start with this? So,
No, there's a lot.
but it's actually quite simple. And like I again wish I like had an energy chart right here just to demonstrate the energy chart of emotions. But if anyone's interested in just checking it out, just Google energy chart of emotions or emotional chart in Hertz. And so there's this vibrational chart of emotions that are measured in Hertz. And literally the measurement of the vibration of our emotions, it starts at apathy, which is like depression or shame, is the lowest. It's the most contracted emotion vibration. So it goes apathy, then grief, fear, lust, anger, pride, courageousness. And now courageousness is where we get to neutral. And a lot of people are functioning underneath those more contracted emotions. Then after courageousness, you get to acceptance, love, and peace. And those are very expansive and creative emotions and vibrations. And so when you're looking at this scale, once you get to neutral, there's so many more descriptive and feelings underneath because that's where most people are functioning. And those vibrations, like what you focus on, you create more of. Okay. And so if you're existing in grief or anger or depression, shame, apathy, that's all you're going to be creating. That's what you're vibrating at. And our cells are going to continue to vibrate at that. But those emotions are very contracting and very low energy. Like when you're depressed, you're embattled it. You can't like do anything. Like even my body language as I'm talking about it, I'm like shutting down. Like my shoulders are coming in. Like my smile is more like, it's just more relaxed. I'm kind of like irritated, like representing that energy. And
Yeah.
so that is the complete opposite of how we're born. And I really want people to, if they have the blessing to be around children and babies, that's our natural state. And comparing those two is, I feel like, the easiest and most simple comparison because we've all been there. We've all been that baby. And if you have the privilege to have, see pictures of yourself as a baby, you will see the most gummy smile of just like, you're just happy and you're shitting your pants. Like
Yeah.
you are literally have to be cared for. People have to clean you, like take care of you. And so like given your circumstances, you are completely helpless and can't really do anything except be happy. Be yourself is what you're being. You're being this joyful, loving, peaceful, giggly being. And just babies are so powerful, so magical, and so vibrant. And I just keep going like this because they're so expansive. They're so just beaming of light, and they don't have to do anything to deserve that. They don't have to be anything else except themselves. They don't have any of the conditioning, programming, worries. They're just being, and they're being themselves. That's it. And that is our natural state. And so it's the process of what happened to get you out of that state, because that is our natural state of being. It is the love, the joy, the acceptance, the peace, ease, joy. Like that's our natural state. And so it's normal and natural for us to go up and down through the emotions chart, to experience grief and anger. Like that is the whole scale of human emotion. I mean, babies, they will wail out and cry when they want to wail out and cry. But when this problem's solved, they're done crying. They don't hold on to, oh, my diaper is making me uncomfortable because they just, you know, need their diaper changed. And it's like, but once it's changed, they're fine. They're not like, well, you took so long to get over here and change my diaper. Like they're not getting into the trauma, the story. It's just the feeling, the sensation. There's an upset, and now it's gone. And now they're back to just their present harmony, being self. And they're not holding on to the past. They're not worried about the future. It's just like being in the present. And that's really what Joe Dispenza's work gets you to. Really, and there's so many modalities out there that can get you to present, to get you to your natural state of being, and just remembering who you are at your core. What is your true nature? What's the truth of who you are? And, you know, asking those questions to yourself and having the curiosity to go discover and dig that person out, because it's there. That person's just waiting for you to say, hi, I remember you. And like, you know, take that little girl's hand or little boy's hand and like be like, oh my gosh, come with me. Can you teach me a thing or two about being present? Because I need some help right now. But when you're going back to like the cell example and vibrational example, when you're in these emotions, that permeates. Like when you walk into a room and you can feel the tension, or you walk into a room and you feel the excitement, like that permeates through all of your cells. You feel that. You're experiencing that in every cell of your body. Your whole body is reacting to your environment. And so our bodies don't really know the difference between imagination, what's real, and what we're telling ourselves, like the narrative. So even our self-talk, our body's reacting as if like that's a threat from the external environment, even though that it's coming from within. So that actually is our self-talk and our self-image, our self-esteem. That is one of the most powerful things you can start working on. And it is also the most damaging, is what you tell yourself. Other people from outside you can be, and you're like, doesn't bother me, because you know who you are. Yeah. You have, you know, your inner core so solid and you have a hand on that. But if you don't, your external influence will influence you a lot. And you're like, oh, maybe I do believe them that I'm X, Y, and Z. But your self-talk, how you're treating yourself, self-love, it sounds easy, and it can be easy, but it's just so important, because that is how your whole body's vibrating. The vibrance is beaming out of every cell of your body, coming from the inside out. And so when you're contracted, when you're in shame, when you're in blame, judgment, fear, every cell of your body is reacting to that. And it's okay to be experiencing for a little bit, but like that 90-second rule, our system really doesn't need to be processing it for more than 90 seconds. And some people are stuck in that state their entire life.
Crazy.
They're years, decades. And so that really takes a toll on our system. And when you get into Joe Dispenza's work, he's getting people out of their personal reality and having them frame a new personal reality and vibrating at that future self and jumping out of those old patterns, and that literally liberates the body from sickness, ailments. When you're stuck in the past and stuck in those low vibrational states, your body is just going to vibrate at those levels. And that level, even with my body language, as I was talking about it, your body just starts to shut down. Your energy levels are just going to start shutting down. You're going to be more lethargic. You're not going to be as sharp. You're not going to be as witty and funny. And your literal organs are going to start shutting down. And with Joe Dispenza's work, literally people that are born deaf after his events can hear. People that have terminal illness, that have stage 4 cancer, that this is their last resort, are healing themselves. It's not anyone else doing it. It is coming from themselves. It is their own self-talk, their own patterns, their own vibration that they're willing to own, take responsibility for, and change themselves. And one, that is huge self-realization, huge self-responsibility. But also, like, we've all been given that power. That is everyone's birthright to have that ability. We all have that ability. We're all born with it. And getting back to that natural state of being, of vibrance, of joy, of expressiveness, of ease, of being unapologetically yourself is our birthright. That's not a privilege. Like, that's who we are. And, through all the like brainwashing, conditionings, and society, trauma, like all that, we've just, forgot that. But there's a beautiful process in the remembering and, taking one step at a time. It doesn't matter what modality you're doing. You can get there as long as you have the intention to start. That's all you need. And you don't have to be paying thousands of dollars to go to these events. Like, I was able to have a major Kundalini awakening, which I was not doing Joe Dispenza's work. I was using the Sedona method modality. But I had no idea what I just did. But with Joe Dispenza's work, I figured, like, he had the education, he had the language to let me know, oh my God, that's what I just did. I'm not crazy. I didn't just like go psychotic. I just aligned my chakras and had a Kundalini awakening. And, that's just a whole nother rabbit hole in itself. But, all these different modalities that you can explore that's around the world is just like looking at a different side of the diamond. We need all these different perspectives. We need all these different sides to complete the puzzle. And so I'm like so totally against being like an extremist. I only do this, I only do that. It's very cult-like. And so as best you can, like, expand your mind, expand your horizon, look in, be curious, and use that natural curiosity to just discover all different modalities, because all of them like keep shining each side of the diamond, and eventually that diamond is just going to be glistening and you'll be able to see so clearly all sides of the diamond.
That was a beautiful way to put it, having all these different experience different things, try out different methods and modalities, and whatever you find, test it out. You never know what might work and like stay with you the most. I know we kind of dived into Joe Dispenza having incredible like awakenings with different clients, and you having some as yourself, but tell us a little bit about some awakenings you've had with people that you've worked with.
Wow. Well, what's fresh in my mind is like recently I work with people that are very in tune and have been doing this work for a while. So these breakthroughs, they're almost like seeking it and they're ready for them. And yeah. So just in sharing these, I don't expect anyone else to have breakthroughs like this, because, we're all very unique and we all get what we need at the right time, right? So I've worked with people that have in one like breathwork session have been able to process all the pain and upset with their grandmother, their grandfather, both their parents, all their siblings, have been able to process all their sexual trauma. And I'm talking about rape and abuse all in one session. Like that is, I'm talking about lifetimes of work. And that to me is just so powerful and so beautiful. I've had other people, and that was just one lady's example. I've had people, I do a specific breathwork session on cutting the cords of your ancestors and being able to liberate yourself from your family cycles. And so I've had many people do that and have very specific responses, physical responses when the cord cutting is happening. And afterwards, these people are so liberated, so free, so inspired, so creative, so alive in who they are. I have had actually a family member of mine did breath work with me, only one session. And she suffers with like a lot of like gastral issues. She's had to have like kidney surgery, gallbladder surgery. And I didn't know this. She actually just told me last night. I was talking to her on the phone. And she's only done one session with me. That's like, I really want to stress that. I didn't know she was having this weird upset of like vomiting. And she didn't know what was causing it. It wasn't like a sickness. She wasn't sick. She doesn't have an eating disorder. She loves food. Like she's not being bulimic or anything like that. And, she was going to the doctors to try to figure out like, what is causing this? Like, I'm just like and she's not pregnant. Like, it's nothing like that. And she would just be sick and have these like puking episodes. And then she did breath work with me. And she told me last night, ever since the breath work session, it like solved, like she's not, it like whatever that nausea was or whatever those puking episodes, she hasn't had one since. And I was like, what? I had no idea that was even an issue for you. I didn't know that was going on for her. And like, that is just wild. There's people that have been able to process like 15 years. Like, this is what they say. They're like, wow, that one session was like 15 years of therapy.
That is a huge compliment. That's awesome.
Yeah. There's other people I have not worked with, but some of my trainers that had neuropathy, that he had to use a walker for the first 2 hours of his day to like feel his feet again. He was a veteran and he had to leave because of injuries. And he's like in his 30s, like he's young. That's young to me to be using a walker for the first 2 hours of his day. And he was on tons of medication where he started noticing the medication was really affecting the quality of his life. More things started shutting down with the amount of medication he was on. He started becoming very mentally unstable of like, just depressed, anxious all the time, irritable, and just like life was just really shutting down and closing in on him, it felt like. And he found breath work and started using breath work, and he was able to get off all his medication. He was able to reverse the effects of his neuropathy. He doesn't have to use a walker anymore. He can feel his entire body now. Like he wasn't able to feel like his legs at all. And he had a spinal injury. Like this is big stuff. And he was able to heal his own body using breath work. And he really talks about the physical injuries really did stem from emotional pain that he was holding on to. I don't know all the details of that, but when he's telling, like when he was processing, when he was healing, he could see the direct connection between some physical ailments to an emotional struggle or pain from the past. And that he suppressed, he was not going to process it, just nope. And so, when people say like don't suppress your emotions because one day it's just going to blow up, and bottling it up, and it's just the lid is going to get like come off. I feel like nowadays the lid doesn't come off. You just end up exploding the whole bottle, and that the bottle's your body, which is how bad it can be. And I mean, the stories just keep going. Like I did a breathwork session for a divorced couple. They did breathwork together. And, they've been divorced for a few years now. And it was just, it was so beautiful to see, like, it was kind of like their closure. They used breathwork as their closure to, one, love and appreciate the time they did have together and how they showed up in each other's lives, and end it on like a good note, but then also just be free of each other. And like this just keeps going on and on. There's there's a woman that she was taken like kidnapped when she was young. And this is a woman that's in her 60s now, but she was kidnapped and obviously tortured. Just horrible things happened to her. And that has sat with her whole life. She's been in this like fear, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, stress response her whole life since. And just doing one breathwork session, she was able to liberate herself from that fear from it happening again. She was able to forgive the person that did it to her. And she was able to move on. And she's done lots of PTSD therapy and trauma, all that stuff. And just nothing was working. And through breath work, she was really able to liberate herself from, I guess, what that kidnapper stole from her. Like these are just wild stories. They're not stories, they're real, but
yeah, just wild journeys and experiences that people have had and have been able to release themselves of.
yeah.
No, it's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of those. I didn't know to that extent of all of the experiences that you've seen or heard of or experienced yourself. That's truly, truly remarkable, for sure.
It's a blessing. Like I just get to witness miracles unfolding. And I do have to stress, like, when I do breath work with people, I'm not the healer. I'm not doing it. Like, I'm just showing you how, and you're the healer. You're the one in control. I can't breathe for you. And like, it's just people really understanding and tapping into the power that they've had from the moment they were born. Like, this power is inside us. And this is just one modality. This is just breath work. Like, there are so many cooler, or not necessarily cooler, I don't want to say that, but there's tons of modalities out there that have the potential to unlock gifts that have been hiding and hibernating in our bodies. It's so cool.
It truly is. And it opened like eyes to a whole different world of things that, because we always hear about medications or vitamins, minerals to try to help this, that, and the other. But there's things like breath work or things that you teach that, and other things outside of that as well, that we can tap into and utilize to actually cure things that we didn't even realize that even we might even need to be cured.
Mm-hmm. Actually, you bring up a really good point. Because since I'm like so involved in this world, I forget that like I feel like I can see the unseen, or I can feel it's like the sixth sense. And I forget that like people they're not necessarily aware of that. And we do live in a very physical world, and there are still physical benefits of doing physical things, of taking those vitamins, of working out, and doing those physical activities. Or Western medicine is so important for like emergencies and surgeries, and it's really helpful. But there's a balance, and I feel like that balance, we've been really tipping to the side of the physical, and we haven't been allowing ourselves to tap in and see the unseen and feel the unseen, and just really dive into those other senses and abilities that we have. I just forget that, like, people aren't necessarily in touch with that, and they're like, what are they talking about? This is all woo woo. And it's like, actually not. It's real life. Just like look into some of Joe Dispenza's work and you'll be mind blown at
It's
what people are capable of.
it's truly remarkable. It's a whole different world, and I think people think it's woo because it's new, but it's not new, but it's new at the same time. Like I would say it's starting to gain its traction. It's starting to get that like word behind it with people like you and Joe Dispenza, who's actually like putting out the word like, hey, this is something that everyone should be utilizing and tapping into in one way, shape, or form. Do you mind me asking, do you know the start of breathwork and that whole like history behind it?
It's thousands of years old. It's ancient.
Beautiful.
It is an ancient art. And so there's a book called Breathe, and it's a newfound science, but an ancient art or something like that is anyways, it's a great book. I really recommend it. It's called Breathe. But it's traditionally used in shamanic uh tribal traditions. And so shamanism is one of the oldest forms of spirituality or religion, I guess you could call it. But and shamanism in itself is such a mystery. And shamans back in the day, or even nowadays, are the healer for their tribe. They're also the spiritual person, or like their spiritual leader in the tribe. So the healer and the spiritual leader are like the same person.
Yep.
And this person normally has to experience, the shaman has to experience a very extreme ailment themselves, or sickness themselves. And it's also like a mental illness.
Mm.
They kind of have to go through a big breakdown or like psychosis in order to discover what this is inside them, the power that they have inside.
Yeah.
And in doing that, going through their own process, they find medicine and find these other modalities or plants or something to remedy things for their tribe. They definitely talk or see spirits as well. Shamans are the bridge between the physical and the spiritual, and they are the voice and the communicator for that. So the shamans also could be like mediums, or considered as mediums, or that. And so breath work actually comes from a shamanic art of healing. It's very ancient, and it's very ceremony like. And some traditions, only the shaman would be doing the breath work. In other traditions, the whole tribe would be doing breath work. And same with like plant medicine. It's, they would, whatever medicine they would do, it's just whatever the tribe needed. And it's very much tailored to their needs. So it's not a universal thing. And there's all these different ways of administering it as well. Some people, would take medicine and then go into a trance and then do breath work. Some would do, tribal dances to get into a trance. Some would, like the tribal music is a huge leader with breath work. And in some breath work, like philosophies, is the healer, along with the breath, is the vibration of the sounds of the instruments and the music and the flow. And, when you get into flow state or know anything about flow state, that is a very healing place to be. So Breathwork comes from very ancient roots from all around the world, but mainly indigenous tribal communities.
That is wild and so beautiful. Did not know about that. I've heard about the shamans, but I didn't know how the ailments and how they administered it to the tribe. Thank you so much for that tidbit of information.
It's
That's so
super
cool.
fascinating, and we're really only hitting the tip of the iceberg.
I
There's so
know.
much to still discover and learn and uncover about this ancient wisdom.
It's so beautiful, and I'm so excited for the future of breathwork too, and like where it's going and how it's gaining more and more traction and how people are doing it more and more. And like the book said, like an ancient medicine, but a newfound science, or it was something along those lines that you said. And it's so true. Like people are implementing it more and more. It's just getting the word out and actually getting people to understand what it actually is and not
Yeah.
this ooh stuff.
I'm just so thankful for science, the scientific side of things, because I feel I'm not alone in this, but I personally had like spiritual trauma. And I think a lot of people have that as well. And it actually took me a while to even realize that's a thing to be like spiritually abused. And I feel like with people that it resonates with, you know, if you've been spiritually abused, and that's like with religion or a cult or, you know, being manipulated using spirituality. And so for me personally, I went the science route. I needed the evidence. I needed the proof that like this is doing something. If someone went to me at a spiritual angle in the past, I would have been like, hell no. Anything spiritual? Fuck that. No. No thanks. Like, sure, I know that I'm very in tune with the sixth sense and, you know, with energy, very in touch with that. But if you start to put a like a God title on it, I was so resistant to that in the past, just from like where I came from and like my conditioning. And I feel like a lot of people have that wound as well. And um, religion has caused a lot of wars, of pain, of, you know, families being broken up. And um, so that, you know, coming from a spiritual lens or a spiritual aspect can be kind of hard for people, and it can look like woo woo and this is taboo and, you know, just this isn't real. So I like completely understand that, but now there's the science to see what's going on, and you can take away all that like religious conditioning. You can take away all that, I don't want to say religious conditioning, but like that religious control of like, you can only get there through this way, or you're only worthy of this if you do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no, this is just science. It's a plug and play program. And like,
Absolutely.
I personally needed that. And I feel like a lot of people nowadays need that too. We need to cut the bullshit. We need to cut the stories, and we just need the plug and play program. I think people are just so done being manipulated and controlled by things that just don't need to have control over us anymore. And I really, really love the science angle of things, and like how Joe Dispenza, he is a neuroscientist and also monitors, like does heart mapping with his work, and just, you know, people like him really putting science on the spiritual is, I think, liberating for so many people, like even myself.
Yeah, for sure. It's bringing a new light to something that we didn't even know existed, and now, well, we did know existed, but now it's bringing a whole new light to it. So it's bringing like these factual, these hard, like more so tangible, like conceptual ideas that are now like showing proof behind it, which is so
Right.
beautiful and so needed, just like you said. Um, it's definitely something unique, and I'm super excited to even dive deeper on my own time and learn more and more about it. I am slowly learning more, and I just can't wait to see what else is out there for sure. To kind of wrap things up and end things off, is there anything else that you would like to say to the podcast listeners or anybody who's watching the video of this? Any little self plugs or any information that you feel deemable to share?
What comes through right now, and this is just coming from my heart,
Yes.
that I just want people to know is like slow and steady wins the race. Like this is a journey. This is your life's journey. This is our life's work. And there's no need to rush it. Like we have plenty of time to do whatever this work is. It's even hard to describe what this work is. And whatever modality you feel called to is great. Like just explore and take your time. Like there really is no rushing any of this. And just be kind to yourself. Like just love what's going on right here and take deep breath.
Love that. That was a beautiful last like note to kind of leave off on. It's so true. It's not a sprint. It's just a like the turtle won the race when the turtle in the hare. So just keep working on it. You're never gonna be like you don't have to worry about being perfect right now. It's just that slow, consistent process of just learning and growing, which is what I'm harping on in my podcast episodes. It's just constantly learning and growing and just flourishing. That's why it's called Flourish with Felicity, which is beautiful.
I love
um,
that so much.
so where can everyone find you? So where can they find you? Where can they learn more and follow you and keep up with your breathwork journey?
The best place right now is probably my Instagram. It's Healing with Hanna, and I don't spell Hannah with the H at the end. So it's just Hanna. So Healing with Hanna.
And I'll put it in the show notes. So if you guys are looking for, I will put that up in the description or down in the description. So you'll be able to follow her and find her and even possibly get a beautiful breathwork session with Hannah as well, which is awesome. Thank you so much once again for saying yes to this podcast. It was such a pleasure having you on. I learned so very much, and I hope that other people listening as well learned a lot from you and probably have a newfound inspiration to go and work on themselves and learn a little bit more about breathwork too. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on, Felicity.
Of course, of course. And just like always, remember everyone dream and to always flourish.